Imagine a vast land of deserts, towering mountains, and fertile valleys, a land between east and west, where one of the greatest empires in history would be born. This is Persia, an ancient civilization that would shape the course of history, leaving a legacy that still echoes today. But before Persia became an empire, it was home to scattered tribes and powerful kingdoms. To understand the rise of Persia, we must first look at the people who lived there, the Medes and the Persians. These two groups were part of a larger family of Indo-Iranian peoples who had migrated to the Iranian plateau thousands of years ago. For centuries, the Medes and Persians lived as nomadic herders and warriors, moving across the vast lands of what is now Iran. The Medes, settling in the northwest, established a kingdom and became dominant in the region. Meanwhile, the Persians settled in a land called Parsa, located in the south near the Zagros Mountains. By the 7th century BCE, the Medes had grown powerful enough to challenge and overthrow the mighty Assyrian Empire, forming their own kingdom. Under their rule, Persia remained a minor vassal state. But everything was about to change with the rise of a leader who would reshape history, Cyrus II, later known as Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was born around 600 BCE into the ruling family of the Persian tribe. His father, Cambyses I, was a Persian king under Median rule, and his mother was believed to be of Median royalty. From an early age, Cyrus was surrounded by stories of war, conquest, and diplomacy. Legend has it that before he was born, the Median king Astyages had a prophetic dream that his grandson, Cyrus, would one day overthrow him. In fear, he ordered the child to be killed, but fate had other plans. The baby was secretly spared and raised in hiding, eventually returning as a young warrior destined for greatness. By the mid-6th century BCE, Cyrus had gathered an army of Persian warriors and led a bold rebellion against the Median rulers. In a stunning victory, he defeated Astyages and took control of the Median Empire. But rather than destroy his former enemies, Cyrus did something revolutionary. He united the Medes and Persians under one rule, creating the foundation of what would become the Achaemenid Empire. This was just the beginning. After overthrowing the Median Empire in 550 BCE, Cyrus was no ordinary king. He didn't just seek power, he sought unity. Instead of destroying the Medes, he incorporated them into his growing empire, allowing their nobles to keep positions of influence. This was a revolutionary approach in the ancient world, where conquered peoples were usually enslaved or exterminated. But Cyrus had a bigger plan, one that would take him far beyond the borders of Persia. To the west, the kingdom of Lydia, one of the wealthiest and most powerful states of its time, stood as a major obstacle. Its king, Croesus, was legendary for his immense wealth, even giving rise to the phrase, "as rich as Croesus." Confident in his strength, Croesus decided to challenge Cyrus, believing the Persians were no match for his army. But Cyrus was not just a warrior, he was a master strategist. When the two armies clashed, Cyrus used an ingenious tactic. He placed his camels at the front of his forces, knowing that the Lydian war horses were unfamiliar with the smell of camels. As expected, the horses panicked, causing disorder in the Lydian ranks. Cyrus swiftly exploited this chaos, crushing Croesus's army and capturing the capital, Sardis, in 546 BCE. But once again, instead of slaughtering the defeated king, Cyrus did something remarkable. He spared Croesus and made him an advisor. This act of mercy and pragmatism became a defining trait of his rule. While Lydia was a great prize, an even greater challenge lay ahead. Babylon, the heart of Mesopotamian civilization. The Babylonians, under King Nabonidus, had grown increasingly unpopular due to his neglect of the priesthood and his attempts to impose religious changes. Sensing an opportunity, Cyrus positioned himself as a liberator rather than a conqueror. In 539 BCE, Cyrus's army marched toward Babylon. The city was considered impregnable, surrounded by mighty walls and the Euphrates River. But Cyrus found a way in. His forces diverted the Euphrates, lowering the water levels enough for his troops to enter through the riverbed and breach the city's defenses. The takeover was swift and bloodless, a rarity in ancient warfare. Rather than ruling through fear, Cyrus declared himself a protector of all peoples and cultures. He allowed the Babylonians to keep their traditions and even freed the Jewish captives, allowing them to return to Jerusalem. This act of tolerance was recorded on the Cyrus Cylinder, one of history's first declarations of human rights. With Babylon under his control, Cyrus created the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from the Mediterranean to the Indus River. He had built not just a kingdom, but a model for governance that would influence rulers for centuries to come. But no empire lasts forever. And while Cyrus was a brilliant leader, even he was not invincible. His final campaign would be his last. With the death of Cyrus the Great, the Persian Empire had lost its founding father, but empires are not built by a single man. What followed was a period of power struggles, betrayal, and ultimately, the rise of a ruler who would take Persia to new heights. His name was Darius I, the architect of the Persian Golden Age. After Cyrus's death in 530 BCE, his son Cambyses II inherited the empire, but his reign was short-lived, filled with instability and mystery. While leading a campaign in Egypt, Cambyses either died under suspicious circumstances or was assassinated. Chaos erupted in Persia. During this turmoil, an impostor named Gaumata seized the throne, pretending to be Cambyses' brother. This deception nearly plunged the empire into ruin, but a nobleman from a powerful Persian family took action. His name was Darius, and he would soon prove himself as one of Persia's greatest kings. Darius was not of royal blood, but he was a brilliant commander and strategist. In 522 BCE, he overthrew Gaumata, securing his claim to the throne. But Darius didn't just take power, he restructured the empire, transforming it into the most efficient and advanced civilization of its time. To govern such vast territories, Darius introduced satrapies, a system of provincial governors who managed different regions under Persian control. Each satrap had autonomy, but remained loyal to the central authority. To prevent rebellion, Darius created a network of spies, known as the King's Eyes and Ears. Under Darius, Persia flourished. Persepolis was built, a stunning capital symbolizing Persian power. The first standardized currency was introduced, the daric, enabling a unified economy. The Royal Road was constructed, a 2,500-kilometer highway connecting the empire. Laws were codified, creating stability across cultures and nations. Persia was now stronger than ever, but no empire rises without enemies, and the greatest challenge Darius would face lay across the Aegean Sea. By 499 BCE, the Ionian Greeks, under Persian rule, rebelled with the support of Athens. Furious, Darius launched an invasion of Greece to punish them. This led to one of history's most famous battles, the Battle of Marathon, 490 BCE. The Persian army landed on Greek shores, vastly outnumbering the Athenians. But the Greeks, using superior tactics, defeated Darius's forces, forcing them to retreat. Darius vowed revenge, but fate had other plans. He died in 486 BCE, leaving his son Xerxes I to take up his cause. Xerxes was determined to succeed where his father had failed. In 480 BCE, he assembled one of the largest armies the world had ever seen, marching toward Greece to crush it once and for all. But standing in his way was a small force of Greek warriors led by King Leonidas of Sparta. The Battle of Thermopylae became legendary. 300 Spartan warriors, alongside thousands of Greek allies, held the Persian army for days in a narrow pass, inflicting heavy casualties. Though Xerxes ultimately won, the delay allowed Greece to regroup. Later that year, the Persians suffered a decisive defeat at the Battle of Salamis, where their navy was destroyed. By 479 BCE, Persia was forced to retreat. Xerxes, humiliated, withdrew to his luxurious palace in Persepolis, never again attempting to conquer Greece. Despite their failure in Greece, the Persian Empire remained the most powerful force in the world. Trade flourished, art and architecture thrived, and Persian influence stretched from Egypt to India. But cracks were beginning to show. Heavy taxation weakened the economy. Rebellions in Egypt and Babylon strained Persian resources. Weak rulers after Xerxes failed to control the empire as effectively. Every empire, no matter how vast, eventually faces its downfall. For over 2 centuries, Persia had ruled as the greatest power on earth. But now, internal struggles, weak rulers, and the ambitions of a young Macedonian king would bring the mighty Achaemenid Empire to its knees. After Xerxes' I, the Persian Empire began to weaken. Corruption spread through the royal court, and the once great administrative system built by Darius was falling apart. Heavy taxation drained the provinces, and rebellions in Egypt and Babylon stretched Persia's resources thin. Artaxerxes I, Darius II, and Artaxerxes II all tried to keep the empire together, but they lacked the strength and vision of their predecessors. Meanwhile, in the west, a new power was rising, Macedonia. By the time Darius III took the Persian throne in 336 BCE, the empire was already in decline, but no one could have predicted that within just a few years, it would be completely destroyed.
In the distant land of Macedonia, a young king had come to power, Alexander the Great. Trained by Aristotle, raised in the art of war, and inspired by the legends of heroes like Achilles, Alexander dreamed of conquest. In 334 BCE, at just 22 years old, he led his army across the Hellespont into Persian territory. His goal, to destroy the Persian Empire.
Alexander's forces were smaller than the mighty Persian army, but his tactical genius and speed gave him the upper hand. Battle of Granicus, 334 BCE, Alexander's first major victory over Persian satraps. Battle of Issus, 333 BCE, Alexander faced Darius III for the first time. Though outnumbered, he crushed the Persian army, forcing Darius to flee. At this point, Darius III made a desperate offer. He was willing to cede half of his empire to Alexander in exchange for peace, but Alexander refused. He wanted it all. Egypt welcomed Alexander as a liberator in 332 BCE. He founded Alexandria, a city that would become a center of knowledge for centuries. Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis fell one by one. When Alexander entered Persepolis, the heart of Persian culture, he burned the Great Palace, a symbolic act of revenge for Persia's invasion of Greece. By 330 BCE, the Persian Empire was all but defeated. Darius III, once the ruler of the greatest empire on earth, was now a fugitive. Darius fled east, hoping to rally his forces, but he was betrayed by his own men. His own governor, Bessus, assassinated him, hoping to gain Alexander's favor. When Alexander found Darius's body, he mourned his fallen rival and gave him a proper burial, an act of both respect and propaganda, showing that he was now the true ruler of Persia. With Darius dead and the Persian heartlands under his control, Alexander declared himself the king of Asia. The Achaemenid Empire, which had once ruled the known world, was no more. But Alexander's ambitions were far from over. He pushed further east, seeking to conquer all lands to the edge of the world. Empires fall, but history has a way of bringing them back to life. The mighty Achaemenid Empire was no more, crushed under the weight of Alexander the Great's conquests. But the Persian spirit was not dead. From the ruins of their ancient civilization, new Persian dynasties would rise, stronger, fiercer, and destined to challenge even the mighty Roman Empire. After Alexander's sudden death in 323 BCE, his vast empire was divided among his generals. Persia fell under the rule of Seleucus I, a former officer of Alexander, who founded the Seleucid Empire. But the Seleucids were not true Persians. They ruled as foreign overlords, bringing Greek culture, cities, and customs into Persian lands. While Greek influence flourished, many Persians resented the loss of their traditions. They waited for a moment to reclaim their identity. That moment came in 247 BCE, when a new power emerged from the eastern deserts, the Parthians. The Parthians were fierce warriors, descended from nomadic tribes who had mastered the art of horseback archery. Under their great leader, Mithridates I, they rebelled against the Seleucids and took control of Persia, restoring native rule for the first time in centuries. The Parthians introduced a deadly new tactic, the Parthian shot. Their horse archers would fake a retreat, luring their enemies into a trap, then turn in the saddle and fire arrows backward while riding at full speed. This made them nearly impossible to defeat in open battle. As Rome expanded eastward, it soon collided with the Parthians. The result? A series of brutal wars that lasted for centuries. One of the most legendary battles took place in 53 BCE, the Battle of Carrhae. A Roman army of 40,000 men, led by Crassus, was annihilated by a much smaller Parthian force. The Romans had never seen anything like it. The Parthians used their mobility to surround and destroy the slow-moving legions. Crassus himself was captured and executed, marking one of the worst defeats in Roman history. But while the Parthians were powerful, their loose confederation of noble families made them unstable. By the 3rd century CE, a new Persian dynasty emerged from the heart of the empire, one that would finally restore Persia's full glory. In 224 CE, a Persian nobleman named Ardashir I defeated the last Parthian king and declared the birth of a new empire, the Sassanian Empire. The Sassanians saw themselves as the true heirs of the Achaemenids, determined to restore Persian greatness. Under rulers like Shapur I, the Sassanians expanded their territory, rebuilt Persian cities, and reformed the government, creating a powerful centralized state. The Sassanians became Rome's greatest enemy, battling the legions for centuries. In 260 CE, the Persian king Shapur I even captured the Roman emperor Valerian, humiliating Rome in a way no one had done before. The Sassanians didn't just focus on war, they revived Persian art, architecture, and learning. The Great Academy of Gunda Shapur became a center of knowledge, preserving ancient Greek, Indian, and Persian texts. For over 400 years, the Sassanian Empire stood as the last great Persian civilization before facing a new challenge, one that would change the world forever. For centuries, the mighty Sassanian Empire stood as the last great Persian dynasty of the ancient world. It had fought off Rome, built a golden age of culture and learning, and ruled over vast lands stretching from Mesopotamia to India. But no empire lasts forever. A new force was rising from the Arabian deserts, one that would reshape Persia's destiny forever. By the 6th century CE, the Sassanians had reached their height under Khosrow I, Anushirvan, known as the Immortal Soul. The Persian economy flourished with advanced irrigation, trade routes, and taxation. Persian art and architecture reached new heights, with stunning palaces and intricate reliefs. Zoroastrianism remained the state religion, deeply influencing Persian society. For centuries, the Sassanians had clashed with their eternal rival, the Byzantine Empire, the eastern remnants of Rome. Under Khosrow II, Persia launched one last great war against Byzantium in 602 CE, conquering vast territories, including Jerusalem and Egypt. But victory came at a price. The war drained Persia's resources, bankrupted the empire, and weakened its military. The Byzantines struck back under Emperor Heraclius, forcing the Sassanians into retreat. By 628 CE, Khosrow II was overthrown and executed, leaving the empire in chaos. While Persia and Byzantium had exhausted each other in war, a new power was rising in the Arabian Peninsula. Led by the Prophet Muhammad, Islam was rapidly uniting the Arab tribes into a powerful force. By 632 CE, Muhammad had passed away, but his followers, known as the Rashidun Caliphs, launched a series of conquests to spread Islam. The Persian Empire, weakened from decades of war, was an easy target. In 636 CE, the decisive Battle of Qadisiyah took place. A vastly outnumbered Arab-Muslim army faced the Persian forces of Yazdegerd III, the last Sassanian king. But Persia, once mighty, was no longer the empire of Darius or Cyrus. Arab cavalry outmaneuvered the slow-moving Persian forces. Zoroastrian war elephants, once Persia's great advantage, panicked and trampled their own troops. Persian commanders were killed and morale collapsed. By the end of the battle, the Persian army was shattered, and Ctesiphon, the grand Sassanian capital, fell to the Arabs. Yazdegerd fled east, desperately trying to regroup. For the next few years, Yazdegerd III tried to rally his forces, but one by one, Persia's great cities fell to the Muslim armies. In 651 CE, Yazdegerd was betrayed and assassinated, marking the official end of the Sassanian Empire. The last remnants of Zoroastrian Persia were gone, and Islam became the dominant force in the region. But while the empire had fallen, Persia's culture, language, and traditions would survive. Persian scholars and poets, like Ferdowsi, preserved Persian history through literature. The Persian language, Farsi, thrived, influencing Islamic civilization. Zoroastrian beliefs and traditions merged with Islamic culture, shaping Persian identity. Persia did not disappear. Instead, it evolved, becoming a key part of the Islamic Golden Age, and later giving rise to new Persian dynasties like the Safavids, who would once again shape history. Though the Sassanian Empire fell, Persia never truly died. It endured, transformed, and continued to influence the world for centuries to come. This is the story of Persia, an empire of greatness, resilience, and an eternal legacy.